When I was younger, I had a Mega Drive and a Snes when the PlayStation was already out, as they were cheaper for my parents and I was a kid, so I was happy with whatever I got. But a positive of me being a generation behind for a bit was that I would get games for both of these systems quite a lot, because they were way cheaper than the PS1 games my older brother was playing. Every month when my mum got paid, she would take me down to a little independent game store near Woolwich Market in London, and she would buy me a few older games, and on one of these days I got Plok for the Snes, because of the cool looking artwork on the cart. It just had this cool kind of claymation look to it. And when I got the game home to play it, I was glad as all hell that I got it, as it would become one of my favourite Snes games. It would definitely be up there in my top 10, that's for sure. Sure, it was a little bit too difficult for me at the time, but I didn't care, I just kept playing it anyway. Plok is one of those games that I as an adult can now appreciate a whole lot more than I did when I was a kid. Kind of like how I didn't get half the jokes in South Park growing up.
Now I know how all those white women must have felt.
I was really too young to be watching South Park. Sure, Plok starts out quite straightforward, but the later levels added in a lot more layers with more things you had to complete to beat the levels, which makes it a lot more interesting than a lot of the paint-by-numbers platformers that were out there at the time. This game was made by Software Creations, another decent English developer that was swallowed up and eaten and spit back out again by a bigger company. And when you play Plok, that English sense of humour really comes across in what little plot there is to this game. Plok starts with this fucking amazing intro song done by Tim Follin and Jeff Follin. It almost sounds like real recorded instruments. God knows how they got the music sounding so good on a Snes. But while we're on the subject, can I just say the music in this game is fantastic. There's so many great sounding tracks in this game, there's loads of different sounds and styles. I love the sound of a lot of the synths. In a strange way, some of the music sounds very Mega Drive-y. It just doesn't sound like anything else on the Snes. The drums on this level sound proper Neil Pearty too. Good job, Tim and Jeff. This music is fucking great. When you start the game properly, you get this little cutscene with Plok awakening to a beautiful day only to find his flag has gone missing. If this happened in England, it probably would have been a bunch of drunk hooligans. I really get the impression that Plok has a thing for flags. Maybe it's some kind of weird sex fetish. If that was the case, this game would make a whole lot of sense. I mean, look at his island. He has a whole set of flags on this island that are exactly the same. Can't he just, make another one? He can obviously manufacture his own. Why do I always question the plots to these games? It's pointless. Let's just say because he's made by English people, it's all about the principle of the whole thing. He can't let some oily vagabond make off of his stuff. That would just not be English. Plok gets his little telescope out and spies his flag on Cotton Island, so he gets in his little boat to get it back. As you go through the first island of the game, at the end of every level you'll find different decoys that have been used to trick Plok. And these are used for little jokes. It starts off with pants. I love how annoyed he's getting. He's reacted like someone's kidnapped his kid. Don't mess with Plok's flags or he will find you, and he will kill you.
I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
God, this boy's so serious about his flags. Most of the decoys are just other flags, but my favourite little goof has got to be this one. Very funny, guys. And this first island kind of works like a tutorial island that eases you into the game's mechanics before it complicates things up later in the game. Plok's only form of attack consists of him throwing his arms and legs at people. Why do I feel like someone ripped this game off? I can't think of who though. And Plok also has two jumps that you can use, a short jump that lets him attack while he's doing it, and a Samus Aran-like jump where he turns into a ball and shoots off into the sky a whole lot higher. And knowing what jump to use and where is literally the key to mastering this game. The controls in this game feel absolutely great and spot on, and they make this game an absolute joy to play. But for whatever reason, it took me half an hour or so to get used to the controls again. I think it's something about the way they've mapped the controls. I have no idea why it took me so long, but I just kept pressing the wrong buttons. Maybe it's just me. Plok does get a few different power-ups through the course of the game. My favourites have to be Boxer Plok, which is literally Plok cosplaying as Rocky. I mean, even has the lazy eye and everything, and the music in the background even sounds like Rocky. Gotta admit, that's pretty funny. I mean, this power literally just makes Plok's punches kill things that he wouldn't usually be able to kill, like these bonefish and logs, so it's nothing too exciting, really. But one of Plok's power-ups that is actually pretty damn exciting is this one where Plok gets turned into some weird, toffee, Tory hunter, complete with a fucking blunderbuss. I love using this power-up. You feel like a god of death. Throughout the levels, sometimes you'll see these trees. Well, I suppose they're meant to be trees, even though they kind of look like diseased cocks that are shooting blood out of the top of them. And sometimes in these trees are these weird fruits that when smacked a few times will take you to a bonus level. Sometimes it'll be a level where you're just collecting golden shells, this game's version of coins, and sometimes you'll get levels where Plok takes control of some type of vehicle. There's stuff like jetpacks and motorbikes. And if you manage to get past these stages in the time limit, you can get warped forward a few levels. And sometimes they just explode and don't do anything. The game does feel quite generous when it comes to lives and the like. You get an extra continue after every few levels, and after you die for good, they at least start you back at the beginning of whatever island you're up to. So many enemies on this opening island do get on my fucking nerves, like these weird heads that pop out of the ground and shoot what I can only assume is pips at you, and these fucking flowers that shoot shit at you that you can't kill are a constant annoyance. But once you get all their patterns down, they're all pretty easy to take care of, really, and that goes for a lot of stuff in this game. A lot of it can feel like a noob trap that you can only learn through trial and error, kind of like Dragon's Lair or something. I mean, look at this bit of the game.
Jesus, how the fuck was I supposed to avoid that? Fucking bastards! Again? Really? Ugh, I'm sure they won't do it again.
Careful, careful. Right, this seems alright. Maybe they're going to be merciful.
That's the most cunty noob death trap I've ever seen! That is like Satan levels of evil! Bravo, bravo!
Another good example of them being dicks to noobs is this bit here.
What could possibly go wrong with this flying cradle? I'm sure it will all be fine.
Sure, the noob trappy elements of this game are annoying, but once you've learned them, it's really easy to get through them, and waltzing through these bits makes you feel like a fucking boss. But once you've got through all the levels on the first island of the game, you get a boss battle with some giant, terrifying, mouth-headed giants that for some reason attack you by spitting their own teeth at you. I'm not even going to try and question that one, let's just go with it. And this boss battle, like the noob traps I just mentioned, is quite hard when you don't know what to do, but when you do, this is a very trivial battle. But I've got to admit, my first few times doing this battle involved a lot of me dying and saying this.
How the fuck was I supposed to dodge that?
But once you take a more strategic approach, this is a trivial fight. All you have to do is lure them to the other side of the screen, punch them so they jump over you, and rinse and repeat until they're dead. But the process of figuring that out was quite fun. After you beat these guys, Plok gets his flag back and returns to his boat, and you'd think, well, that's a short game. But you're wrong, it's not over yet. It's only beginning. You aren't ready for the horrors that await our boy Plok.
But he was doing good, and that what makes it so bad.
All around me are familiar faces.
Oh, and that's what makes it so bad.
Worn out places.
You're lying. I never hit
Worn
you.
out
You're tearing me apart, Lisa.
Leave her alone. Daily races. Going
No, God.
nowhere. Going
No, God,
nowhere.
please, no. No.
Their tears are filling up their glasses. No expression, no expression. Hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow. No tomorrow.
So as you just saw, the first flag being stolen was just a ruse to get Plok off the island so the rest of his flags could be stolen. I hate to again question the plot of this Shakespearean masterpiece, but if they could steal the flag closest to him, the one next to his house, without him knowing, why couldn't they just take the rest of the flags while they were at it? Why did he need to be away from the island? Ugh, I need to stop caring so much. Not only have Plok's flags gone, but his island has been taken over by fleas. Fucking hell, if fleas were like that in the real world, you'd need more than a flea bomb to get rid of them. I mean, fuck, I'd probably just burn my house down to be honest with you. And this is the second island of the game, and from here on the game gets a little bit more complicated. In the first island of the game, you're just working your way through levels in a quite linear fashion. You've just got to get to the end, and that's that. But on the second island, the game introduces different objectives that you have to do before you can finish the level. And this island was where I'd always get stuck and give up as a child, as at times it can get quite confusing. On all of these levels, there's now this little meter that represents all the fleas in the level, and you have to find them all and kill them before you can finish, as the last flea will always have your missing flag. It is a nice little mechanics change up, but when you're constantly dying and redoing levels, it can get old really fast, as it makes all the levels last a whole lot longer. I don't know, but for whatever reason, these fleas and the way they distort the levels and cover them in rot, and the way they hatch from their eggs, just kind of gives you that alien vibe for whatever reason. Especially when you get the hunter power up and you're just running through the rot shooting up fleas.
Get away from her, you bitch!
They also add in these circle things that you have to punch before you can move on, and when you do, they claim one of your limbs, which is kind of creepy and makes attacking things a whole lot harder. And sometimes you'll have to sacrifice all your limbs to get through a certain section, which leaves Plok as this creepy, hopping, limbless husk. Such a weird mechanic. And halfway through clearing out this island of fleas, Plok gets a bit knackered and has a nap, which leads to a dream sequence where you're playing as Plok's grandpappy. I mean, he's just Plok with a moustache. A moustache that makes me feel inadequate about my awful shit moustache.
My moustache will never be as glorious as that. My whole world is alive.
I love this section of the game as everything goes black and white, and I just love the shit that Grandpappy Plok says like this.
Get too old for this shit.
Too old for this shit.
I'm too old for this.
I'm too old for this shit.
I'm too old for this shit. I'm too old for this shit.
Gotta admit, that line made me laugh a little bit. And it shows that that line was tried and mocked even in the 90s. Even the pause screen is made to look like it's straight out of an old movie. It's such a nice touch. These levels are essentially just harder versions of the levels from the first island, and these levels go back to the more linear style, but that doesn't mean they're easy by any means. I fucking hate these enemies they added in that are just essentially floating spiked balls that you can't kill. They're fine when you've only got to deal with one of them, but when they bunch them together in twos or threes, they become a real fucking problem. I can't seem to get past these fuckers without taking a few hits. After you get through these few Grandpappy Plok levels, you've got to fight the Bobbins brothers again. God, it's a bit early to be playing the old fight the same boss again but harder stick. And this time there's 3 horrific teeth giants waiting for you. Wait, there's 3 of them in the past. Does that mean Grandpappy Plok is a murderer? See, I just assumed he was dead, but he's probably just in prison somewhere. The fight is made all the harder by the inclusion of a third brother and the fact that you have less ground to fight on, as there's a mound of dirt here at the end for some reason. This stuff just makes it harder to read the brothers' patterns, but much like the first boss, with a bit of patience and luck, you can have these fuckers figured out pretty quickly. Plok then awakens to find an amulet that he, for some reason, needed was under Grandpappy's statue all along. See, this fits with my narrative that Grandpappy Plok is a murderer, as he hid the spoils of his kill so the pigs couldn't find it. You better put that back, Plok, unless you want Grandpappy to murder you too! The game really starts to ramp up in difficulty here, with them adding in these annoying green fuckers that do my bloody head in. But after a while, you'll come up against the game's next bosses, the Penquinos. Man, they kind of sound like an Italian mob family. The Penquinos are these weird flying pufferfish balloon blimp things with top hats. That's literally the only way I could think of to describe them. And you have to wait till they're not pumped up and hit this button to ground them and then punch the fuck out of them until they're all dead. As you're trying to do this, these bastards will be dropping projectiles down on you, and dodging these projectiles can feel like a bullet hell game at times. And when the fuckers are near death, it can get fucking tricky not to get hit by these patterns. But it's a fun, challenging little boss fight. After this boss fight comes one of the most tedious levels in the whole game. This level here. Sure, it's not the hardest, it just likes to waste your goddamn time. Like you do throughout the whole game, you have to hit these switches to activate stuff. In this case, it's these rock columns, and there's one part of the level that drives me absolutely insane, and it's this part with the 3 rock columns. You have to hit some switches when the columns reach as far as they go, and sure, the first one is fine, but the second one is a bit of a bastard, because even if you're slightly off with the timing of your jump, boom, you're back to the start of it again. Which means, you guessed it, you're going to be constantly having your time wasted while you wait for these columns, and it can get pretty old fast when it happens a few times in a row. I just use this time to drink some beer. But sure, once you've got this bit down to a science, it's not too bad, but then comes this bit right after it, where you can easily fall down and have to do all this shit with the rocks again, which means, you guessed it, a whole lot of fucking waiting for fucking cunting rock columns. You think that's all this dickhead level has to offer? Well, you'd be wrong, because I can't even count the amount of times the bees near the end of this level have sucker punched me and cost me a life. While we're on the subject of bees, can I just say the bees in this game are fucking annoying and broken. It's the only enemy in the game where it feels like something's off about them. I swear sometimes my attacks are just going through them, like here. What the fuck is up with the bees in this game? This game has weird giant blue fleas, giant mouth demons, weird air blimp balloons that drop bombs, and a giant spider. But fucking bees are the hardest thing in this game. After this cunty section is out of the way, in the next level we are treated to the best power up in the game, the flamethrower. Hell yeah.
Cool. Fire! 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 Fire!
Remember what I said about this game clearly taking some inspiration from Alien? Well, this bit more than proves it. Then after all this shit, you have to fight, yes, a giant spider. God, couldn't they think of something better? They just took a page straight out of Generic Enemy Design 101 here.
Here we go, let's just show you in the book. Generic Enemy Design 101. Okay, now let's see. What have we got here? We've got bats, rats, giblins, Arakai chieftains. Oh yeah, and here on the first page, spitters.
And surprisingly, I would say this spider is the easiest boss in the game. All you've got to do is hit him and dodge his green projectiles. I honestly beat this boss on the third try. What a pushover. Once he's dealt with, the levels after this get a whole lot more maze-like and annoying. Like on this level, where if you do a few things in the wrong order, you can literally fuck yourself so hard you can't beat the level. And the bees are out in full force on this level, killing you in the most annoying glitchy ways possible. I fucking hate bees. But after I finally got past this level, the next level got even more cunty than the annoying bees. They expect you to do this whole level with no fucking legs. And I've not gone into great detail yet about the control of Plok when he has no legs, and that's mainly because up until this point there really hasn't been that much of it. But since this level is forcing me into it, I guess I should talk about it. Okay, I get that thematically Plok controlling like shit when he's got no legs makes sense, but come on guys, you could have made the control of legless Plok a little bit nicer. Whenever you move, he does this awkward little jump that's a pain in the ass to control, and you can no longer jump with the jump button, you have to move Plok to get him to jump. And when they're expecting you to platform in this mode, that's a whole lot of fucking trouble, as you'll find yourself accidentally falling off a ledge a lot. Come on guys, you could have at least let me jump with the jump button, you fucks. And if that weren't enough of a pain in the arse, they've added in this enemy that you have to hit in the back and then hit in the air, making sure you don't hit his shield. And when you've got no fucking legs and a hard to control jump, this is a fucking rage-inducing experience. It's worth mentioning at this point that every time I had no continues left on this level, I would have to go all the way back to the level after Plok wakes up from his grandpappy dream. And that involves me doing a bunch of long levels and beating two bosses over and over again, only to get up to this level I was stuck on and to die again very rapidly. It was at this point I was so close to giving up, as I just couldn't take the misery anymore. But I had to get through it, so I trained hard.
Let's get down to business to defeat the Plok. I hate the bees, they can suck my balls. Since the cheapest game I've ever played, you can bet before I'm through, Mr. I'll be the Plok today. Use the secret warps to cheat this game. Use the flamethrower and
a spineless pale Englishman, and I suck at video games. Somehow I'll beat the plot today. I'm gonna drink a lot of beer and swear like a satyr. I swear Plok has a flag fetish. Grandpappy's got a fire mustache, mine looks like shit. I really wish that Plok could swim. I must be swift as a drunken bitch, with all the force of a special breed, with all the strength of a raging boner, mysterious as the bees in this game. I'm doing my training montage so I can beat the Ploks finally.
I thought you were going to steal somebody else's footage and pretend you did it.
Well, that's fucked that, innit?
Wait, we don't know. Let's go to